Okay. Hi, everyone. My name is Febri Rio Cahyono. I'm a student of the School Business Administration Institute Teknologi Bandung in MBA 10, where today I'd like to uh, explain about the government failure in energy policy, where it is when the intervention backfires. This analysis will focus on the Indonesian's administered pricing regime and fiscal volatility, then the path to structural reform. Okay. Next is we talk about the Indonesian's energy trap. The the energy trap in here we highlight there is three part that we can explain. First, the mechanism, and second, impact, and the last about the solution and the escape, how we escape about the solution. First, about the trap, the mechanism, that we understand that the administered price for the fuel and the electricity, that is break the link between the global cost and domestic tariff. It is results to the government failure where the intervention amplify distortion rather than the corrected the market failure. We understand that the government still subsidize the fuel and the electrical price now, and what the impact on the cost in terms of the fiscal. We record that on in the 2022 the cost peak on the 551.18 trillion rupiah to subsidy and compensation for state-owned enterprise. That's because of we try to recover after COVID situation, and it's about the social. What the cost impact on the social, it is regressive benefit, while the middle class capture the gap between the retail and the economic prices. And the last, the climate, the carbon lock-in is still remain on the 39.7% of the primary energy supply. That will be explained in more detail in the next slide, and how we escape from from this matter, which is the solution. First, we shift the subsidy, the focus from the commodity to the people targeted. I mean the welfare data, and we offers the implementation of formula based on pricing, the corridors to remove the political discretion. So we need to spread between the energy policy and the political willingness, political discretion, whatever will be, whoever the regime will not change. So this is the formula based on pricing, and we need to reform the procurement, which is we have a problem to cool DMO and the take or pay on the PLN prices to align with the energy transition to new renewable energy. This is the trap that the government policy like live in the cycle where customer protection that stabilize the economy. And the next, the balancing of the national objective. If we look at the three singular and a circle in here, we have the fiscal stability, social welfare, and then energy transition. They lock each other. They have a conjunction, and we highlight that there is a volatility trap in here, where the fiscal stability deficit is to remain less than 3%, and the debt management and the energy transition. We try to reduce the coal and the new renewable energy target. Well, the social welfare, the government try to offer the affordable energy and the purchasing power for for this for all the social society, but we have the vulnerability trapped inside of these three uh, circle element where the current regime attempts to balance the three competing national objectives, but it fails. It fails to satisfy any fully. And the intersection is this vulnerability trap. Uh, it is managed through the administered pricing regime that relies on APQ of compensation to state-owned enterprise between the Pertamina and the PLN, that this is creating the hidden liabilities, where this is the core problem, where we try to stabilize the fiscal, try to put the energy transition, and we put the first priority for social welfare. We still rely on the compensation for the state-owned enterprise such as Pertamina and PLN. Okay, and we go to the balance between the market failure and the government failure, where the market failure refers to good intention of the government, but it is good intention, but the government in here to fail. We try to analyze in here based on three theoretical scheme with the deadweight laws, the quasi-fiscal liabilities, and carbon lock-in. First, we highlight about the internalize and externalize this, which is the pollution and the carbon. Based on the deadweight laws analysis, it is we saw that there is the allocative inefficiency in here, and we look at the self-energy poverty, where the access for low-income household, it is result on the hidden debt through the small state-owned enterprises and the control monopoly power through the PLN and Pertamina. It is result on the renewables, the new renewable energy cannot compete because you remain and keep monopolize the PLN and Pertamina, and that will be the carbon lock in there. So what we learned about this, the balance between market failure and government failure, we can conclude that the risk is not that the intervention exists, but it's more to the incentive can backfire by amplifying the price distortion. We go to next. There's the pillars of the administered pricing regime. Just notice, government try to administer the pricing to the fuel and LPG price control, where we know that for the LPG for 3 kilograms still on the unchanged. The retail fixed price is still unchanged against the fluctuative global oil and gas prices. And second, the compensation scheme, where the state-owned enterprise like a PLN or Pertamina is still reimbursing for their loss where the incurred by selling below the cost, that it will be creating implicit subsidies, and it is still rolling, go day by day, month by month, and every year is still keep like this, the scheme, the compensation scheme. And the next for coal, domestic market obligation, and the PRED caps, and still administered pricing regime still apply this the procurement scheme, where the DMO cap on at $70 per ton for power generation to artificially lower tariff. And the last, and it is really impact a lot to their the trap cycle, where they apply the rigid procurement take or pay (TOP) clauses in the power purchasing agreement (PPAs) that the force payment for a first supply. That's mean whatever the supply quality and the stock of the producer, the power purchase agreement will be checked by the state-owned enterprise. This is the four pillars that applies by the Indonesian governments that administered pricing regime. Okay, next we discuss about the intervention backfire loop, when the one action will be implies the next action and will be backfire to the first action. So it is creating the loop between one action to another action. First, we talked about the government cap prices that we talked before, and it is research to distorted the demand signal when it is will be impact to overconsumption. Then the overconsumption reflect to external shock. When we have the external shock in here, well, the global price go higher and exchange rate shifted, or the global price and exchange rate goes to fluctuating. It will impact directly to the gap will be widened, and in the sum of point, it can be resort to subsidy bill exploded. And what happened if we have the gap widened? It will be resort to fiscal consequences when the development space for shifting to new renewable energy will be shrinking, disappear and limitless. And these fiscal consequences will be impact to reaction, where subsidies maintained to avoid unrest, and back again to the government cap price. So this intervention, it will impact the backfire like a loop, when it's impact one and then its other. So you lock in the change. So what we can understand about this change, or this loop, whereas the budget highly sensitive to external shocks, while discouraging energy inefficiency. This is really crucial for Indonesian policy. Okay, we go to the next for fiscal volatility, where in here we see, if we compare from 2012, which is more than 15 years ago, and this still 95 below 100 trillion rupiah, and 2022 we see that the compensation is around three was around 379 trillion rupiah, which is it is to time. It's compared to subsidy, which around 172 trillion rupiah. Of course, it is because the government tried to uh, recover after COVID. But if you look at the next year, on to 2024 and 2025, the ratio between the compensation and the subsidy is still so the volatility, the volatility when the compensation is more higher, it is higher than the subsidy where is around two time. So what does this mean? What does this mean that the compensation payment to the state-owned enterprise for the losses is dwarfed the explicit subsidy, and it is the true cost of energy until the debt reimbursement. So the fiscal is really volatile. Next, we go more deeper to regressive subsidy, where if we were talking about the gap between the consumption and the subsidy. So in here we look at the gaps from the economic the price and the retail price. So we can look at the here solar government put their subsidy cap on the 40%, 43%, where the price in the global price in the 11,950 rupiah per liter, where when the retail price in 6,800 rupiah per liter. We shift to the LPG. Even we look at in here, it is higher subsidy cap. And the global price, we see it's around the 42,750 per cycle, when the retail price it's around 12,750 per cylinder. It is huge gap of the subsidy. So what the regressive outcome in here? Richer households consume more fuel and electricity, capturing the lion's share of the support. The gap is funded by taxpayer revenue. It is really obvious in here. Okay. Okay, we go to the next, where to the primary energy supply in 2023. The first ranking in there still dominating by coal, where the 40%, and followed by the petroleum, where the 30%, and the gas is 70.1%, and the rest is the renewable energy, where the new renewable energy is still lag behind compared to the non-renewable energy, whereas the coal and petroleum. And if we talk about the coal, the domestic market obligation cap is still $70 per ton. It is really put pressure on the new renewable energy competitiveness and new renewable energy transition. So if we look at the crowding out the mechanism, well, to cool domestic market obligation supersedes the generation costs artificially. And second, the new renewable energy appears expensive by the comparison because there's a cap. And what the result? The result is this carbon lock-in and delayed investment in RPTL goals. Okay, we go to the market intervention, where in here we have two conditions where the scarcity risk, where the coal DMO and the surplus trap in here by the electricity. This already discussed in previous slide. What the result of the scarcity of the coal domestic mineral domestic market obligation, this incentive to export illegally, and under supply domestic plan. And what the impact? The supply security threat, despite the abandoned reason. On the other side, we have the surplus trap of the electricity. Sorry. PLN reduced top burden by the 40 trillion rupiah in 2022 through the optimization, but it has impacted the massive liability for overestimate demand. From the two, scarcity risk and the surplus trap electricity in here, we can conclude that it is really obvious that the market intervention creates simultaneously scarcity and inefficiency. Next, for intense institutional incentive. So we look at the four institutions in Indonesia. Here we have the Minister of the Finance, the Minister of Energy and Mineral Resources, and state-owned enterprise like Pertamina and PLN, and the Bank Indonesia. And here we combine this and make it a gridlock. First, we look at the conflict mandate. The goal between each institutional. We look at the Minister of the Finance that the goal is try to press their deficit to less than 2%, and the Minister of Energy that their goal is to have the low tariff and the new renewable energy target in the years ahead. Pertamina and the PLN, the state-owned enterprise, their goal is the liquidity and the survival, their business survival. And the next for the Indonesian bank or Bank Indonesia, their goal is to control the inflation. So what is the conflict in here? So each institution create the resistance to change that might threaten the specific mandate, because to have the new renewable target, they will be against the Pertamina and the Pertamina goal, and the Minister of Finance, they try to reduce their deficit. It is also against the inflation control. And why it's difficult to reform it? It is because that the rise of price it's to reflect the two costs are politically unpopular. That's the political issue in here, and threaten the short-term stability, leading to the policy paralysis. And what the consequences of the gridlock in here of each institutional? This is the lock in fossil fuel dependence and delays necessary long-term investment for energy transition to the new renewable energy. Okay, we see the macroeconomic costs in here. On the exchange rate vulnerability, and it is probably, if we look at the forecast of the exchange rate between dollar and the rupiah in here, we will reach the 16,700 rupiah per USD, and will be increased by the time. And there will depreciation increasing for oil import. That means the oil price will be go higher, maybe, and it's fluctuating, but our exchange rate remain and will be keep higher time by time. So it's will result to widening the subsidy gap all the time and years ahead. And the next, the twin deficit. What is the twin deficit in here? First, it's the high oil imports will become worsened, and the high subsidy worsen fiscal deficit. So we have a deficit in terms of the oil imports, and the fiscal deficit will be bring the Indonesian government to have a double or twin deficit in here. And the last is the more important, and Indonesian government will lose the opportunity cost. So we need to remember when the every rupiah spent for the fuel, for the old subsidy that was taken by the government will be reduced. The health insurance, education, and the infrastructure that's really important for the Indonesia target to be a developed country. Okay, from all the problem, we try to map the recommendation in here to fix the problem. We offer two concrete recommendation. First, our recommendation is to see from the commodity subsidies to the people protection. And second, to unlock the supply side through the market design. Okay, we go to the first recommendation. How to shift the commodity subsidies to the people protection when we try to upgrade our welfare data. So we to deliver or pay cash directly to the poor society instead of to make it subsidized to all the society in Indonesia. And then we apply the formula-based pricing when we adopt the corridor system where the retail prices float within the limit. So instead of let it make it inelastic cap and the floor pricing, it is better to adopt the corridor system in here. So the pricing will be fluid, but the minimum and the maximum limits in here following the market. And then the last is automatic stabilizer, where the recommended the fiscal cap to prevent the budget shock in here. So we need commitment from the Indonesian government to fiscal cap in here, so we can avoid the budget shock. Our second recommendation to unlocking supply side through market design, we reform the DMO code regulatory to move from the fixed price cap to time-bound rules based on the mechanism compatible with transition. So we make it more elastic price in here. So don't make it fixed cap price. Of course, there's one that institutional will be a little bit loose, but there's another solution in another action in there. Next is fixed procurement to reduce take or pay exposure, procure flexibility It's based on the storage, green, not just the base load capacity. And then last, the transparency. We create the simply energy support statement that's transparent in the national budget to expose hidden liabilities. I know the last is really challenging, but if we can apply that, it will be really, really game changer. Next, we also create a roadmap toward the sustainable energy. First, we have separated three pace in here. First pace is immediate action. Second pace is medium to long term, and third is more a long term, the long action condition. First, what should we do immediately? First, audit the compensation area. We talk about the welfare data, and then we need to integrate all the welfare data into one very super integrated welfare data, and then consolidating reporting, because we need to have valid and verified the welfare data about where's the real poor society that should be uh, deliver the subsidize and deliver the pay cash for their the welfare. And then what we should do, an Indonesian government to for the medium term, to implement pricing corridor that we were talking about, and then the targeted cash transfer, not only to put and implement all the subsidies and revise the PPA terms. We already discussed before. And the long term, this is really game changer, and the last, and it will be make it different, make it Indonesian different, make it Indonesians to become the developed country. So Indonesian government policy must be fully reformed for the domestic market obligation. We cannot just make it fixed all the time and make it another the enterprise will be collapse or deficit, and the competitive renewable procurement. So this is really key action to shifting from the fuel and coal power to the renewable energy. And the last is the fiscal caps. It's really important for the fiscal interesting. So in the final word, I can say that Indonesia can retain a stabilization role, actually, without the backfire effect by modernizing its instrument of the protecting people and not the prices. Okay. Okay, that's all from me. Thank you very much. Hopefully this all my presentation will be help. Thank you.